There comes a moment in life when you sense a stirring deep within your spirit, a whisper that cannot be ignored, a gentle but unmistakable prompting that God is positioning you for abundance. This is not mere coincidence. This is divine orchestration. When you see doors opening that no one can explain, when opportunities appear that seem beyond your qualifications, when resources come into your life at just the right moment, understand this: God is not absent. He is actively guiding you toward financial elevation. It is essential that you recognize the patterns He places before you, the nudges that push you out of your comfort zone, and the doors that swing open with seemingly effortless timing. God's leading is never chaotic. It is always intentional, meticulously timed, and aligned with His purpose for your life. Wealth is not merely about accumulation. It is about stewardship, responsibility, and the ability to channel blessings in ways that glorify the source of all prosperity. If you see a clear path to financial breakthrough, if the seeds of opportunity present themselves with clarity and urgency, understand that this is more than ambition. It is a divine invitation to step into the provision that has already been ordained for you. Do not dismiss these moments as luck, coincidence, or timing. They are spiritual signals, gentle yet unmistakable, that call for action, faith, and obedience. God does not lead aimlessly. He leads with purpose, and when you follow His lead, wealth is not only attainable but sustainable. Every encounter, every idea, every connection that begins to align around your financial elevation is part of a divine blueprint. It is your responsibility to recognize these cues, to move with courage and wisdom, and to act in alignment with the spiritual path He has designed for you. The call to abundance is always accompanied by preparation, clarity, and insight. You must cultivate discernment, for not every opportunity is from Him, but those that are will resonate with a sense of peace, clarity, and inevitability. As you step forward, understand that God's guidance toward wealth is holistic. It nurtures not just your bank account, but your character, your integrity, and your capacity to use wealth as a tool for greater purpose. The journey toward financial blessing is a spiritual journey. Every step requires faith, obedience, and trust that the one who provides never fails. When God is leading you to money and wealth, He provides strategies, aligns people in your path, and opens doors that human effort alone cannot open. Recognize these signs, embrace them with confidence, and move with the assurance that divine provision is real, tangible, and designed specifically for your season of life. Do not shrink back in doubt or fear. Instead, rise with expectation, knowing that God's hand is upon you, guiding you toward prosperity, stability, and the fulfillment of your God-given destiny. Your eyes must be open to see the opportunities. Your heart must be aligned to receive them, and your hands must be ready to act. God is leading, and when you follow His lead with courage, obedience, and vision, wealth is not just a possibility, it is a promise. Timing is everything in the journey toward wealth, but not human timing, God's timing. There is a divine calendar that governs when opportunities appear, when doors open, and when resources flow into your life. Many people rush, they try to force outcomes. They chase wealth with desperation and impatience, and in doing so, they often miss the blessings that are already waiting for them at the perfect moment. God's timing is always flawless, and it is orchestrated according to your spiritual maturity, your faith, and your readiness to steward what He will entrust to you. There will be moments when it feels like nothing is happening, when the world seems stagnant and your efforts appear fruitless, but these are not signs of delay. They are seasons of preparation. During these seasons, God is shaping your character, developing your wisdom, and aligning circumstances in ways that you cannot yet see. Every experience, every trial, every encounter is purposeful, moving you closer to the moment when divine provision will manifest. Wealth that comes before readiness is often squandered. But when God's timing aligns with your faith and actions, it becomes sustainable and transformative. Recognizing divine timing requires discernment and spiritual sensitivity. It calls for patience, not passivity, action, not anxiety. You must be alert to the subtle prompts, the opportunities that arise at unexpected times, and the encouragements that speak to your heart. These moments are often accompanied by peace, clarity, and a sense of inevitability that cannot be explained by human logic alone. Do not rush them. Do not doubt them. Do not compare your journey to others. Your timing is unique, and God's plan for your wealth is as precise as it is personal. At times, God will place you in situations that seem inconvenient or challenging, testing your perseverance and faith. These tests are not obstacles, they are preparation. They strengthen your resolve, refine your understanding of stewardship, and ensure that when the breakthrough comes, you are ready to handle it with integrity and wisdom. Understand that God's timing is also relational. The people, connections, and networks that will help elevate you financially are aligned and positioned in perfect order, but only when you are ready to receive and act. A door may appear to open early, but if you step through prematurely, you may find challenges that could have been avoided through patience. Conversely, opportunities that seem delayed are not denials. They are divine pauses, ensuring that when the blessing arrives, it arrives fully equipped to transform your life and magnify your purpose. Learning to trust this timing requires faith that surpasses sight. It requires a heart attuned to God's voice, a mind focused on His promises, and hands willing to act when the opportunity aligns. As you move through life, cultivate patience, prayer, and discernment, understanding that every season has a purpose, every delay has meaning, and every breakthrough is intentional. When you embrace God's timing, wealth comes not as a fleeting gift, but as a stable foundation upon which you can build, invest, and multiply blessings. The key is alignment. Align your heart, align your actions, and align your vision with the divine rhythm. God is not late. He is never early, and He is always precise. Trust in His timing, prepare in the waiting, and when the moment comes, step boldly into the wealth that He has ordained for you. Let your faith grow stronger in the unseen moments. Let your vision expand during the preparation, and let your spirit remain anchored in the promise that God's timing is perfect, and when He leads you to money and wealth, it will come at the precise moment you are ready to receive it fully and wisely. True wealth is not simply about accumulating money or possessing material things. It is about aligning every step of your life with God's principles of stewardship, generosity, and integrity. You can have abundance in your hands, but without alignment with His ways, it is temporary, unstable, and often becomes a source of emptiness rather than blessing. God's wealth is holistic. It touches not only your finances, but also your character, your relationships, your influence, and your spiritual life. When God leads you toward financial breakthrough, He is also calling you to live in a way that reflects His values, principles that sustain wealth and multiply blessings for yourself and others. Stewardship begins with understanding that everything you have belongs first to God. Wealth is a tool, a responsibility, a trust, not an end in itself. Those who grasp this principle understand that their resources are to be managed wisely, invested with purpose, and used to create impact far beyond themselves. Generosity is the key that unlocks God's favor. The one who gives, not reluctantly but willingly, is the one who sees doors open in ways that the selfish cannot comprehend. Giving is not a drain. It is an act that aligns your heart with God's abundance, activates blessings, and establishes a pattern of multiplication. Integrity in financial matters is essential. Wealth gained through deceit, manipulation, or shortcuts may bring temporary gain, but it cannot stand in the light of God's truth. Those who conduct their affairs with honesty, fairness, and transparency position themselves to receive lasting provision. True wealth is therefore inseparable from character. God measures readiness for financial elevation, not merely by ambition or intelligence, but by the alignment of your heart with His ways. When your values, decisions, and lifestyle reflect stewardship, generosity, and integrity, you are spiritually prepared to receive and multiply wealth. Financial growth is a mirror of spiritual growth. You cannot expect a sudden increase in resources if your heart is unprepared, if your mind is fixated on selfish gain, or if your vision is clouded by greed or fear. God's wealth comes with a calling, a responsibility to impact the lives of others, and a mandate to advance His kingdom. Every dollar, every opportunity, every breakthrough must be seen through the lens of purpose. God does not bless wealth simply to satisfy desire. He blesses it to expand influence, provide for others, and create a legacy of impact. Wealth aligned with divine principles produces peace, joy, and confidence. It allows you to act with authority, think strategically, and make decisions that multiply resources rather than squander them. When God leads you to money and wealth, He simultaneously guides you to live rightly, think wisely, and use your resources for eternal significance. Misalignment leads to loss, regret, and missed potential. Alignment leads to sustainability, exponential growth, and divine favor. As you pursue wealth, examine your motives, your actions, and your stewardship. Ask yourself, am I giving as I should? Am I managing responsibly? Am I acting with integrity? Am I using wealth to bless, uplift, and serve others? When these answers align with God's principles, you are ready to receive the abundance He is orchestrating. True wealth is therefore the intersection of provision and principle, prosperity and purpose, resources and righteousness. God's way of financial blessing is never reckless. It is always measured, intentional, and life-transforming. When you embrace these principles, the wealth you receive will not only satisfy material needs, but will also build character, influence, and eternal significance. This is why alignment with divine principles is non-negotiable. It is the foundation upon which God builds sustainable, multiplying wealth. Without it, riches can slip away, opportunities can fade, and the heart can remain empty despite abundance. But when your life reflects stewardship, generosity, and integrity, God's financial favor flows unhindered. Doors open, connections align, and resources multiply in ways beyond human understanding. You become a conduit of blessing, not just a recipient. You demonstrate that true wealth is never selfish, never temporary, and never without purpose. It is a reflection of God's heart, a testimony of obedience, and a vessel for impact. Financial breakthroughs often require faith-driven risks, and this is where many stumble because human logic tends to play it safe. God's path to wealth is rarely a straight, comfortable line. It is filled with opportunities that demand courage, conviction, and decisive action. Faith-driven risks are not reckless gambles. They are calculated steps taken in obedience to God's guidance, steps that require trust in His provision, even when the outcome is not immediately visible. When God is leading you to money and wealth, He often positions you at crossroads, moments where you must choose between staying in familiar security or stepping out into the unknown with confidence in His direction. These moments are tests of your faith, revealing whether your trust in God's promises is genuine or merely theoretical. Many fail to step out because fear clouds their vision, doubt paralyzes their actions, and the comfort of the status quo seems safer than the unknown. Yet those who take faith-driven risks discover that God's provision is greater than their fear. His timing is better than their plan, and His wisdom surpasses their understanding. Stepping into these opportunities requires preparation, a disciplined mind, a heart aligned with God, and the courage to act even when circumstances appear uncertain. You must pray, seek guidance, and discern the Spirit's direction, because not every opportunity is from God. But when a risk aligns with His voice, it carries divine approval and promises multiplication. God often leads you to resources, partnerships, and ventures that seem beyond your capability. And faith-driven risk is the bridge between your current position and the destiny He has ordained. It is the act of moving forward when the path is unclear, trusting that the God who calls you also equips you. Faith-driven risks build resilience and character. Each step of obedience strengthens your spiritual muscles, deepens your dependence on God, and positions you for even greater opportunities. Fear, hesitation, and indecision keep people stagnant, but bold action rooted in faith activates blessings, opens doors, and demonstrates to God that you are ready for the increase He has prepared. Understand that God does not demand blind leaps. He asks for confident obedience. He provides signs, confirmations, and peace that accompany His calling. When you step forward, even tentatively, God meets your obedience with provision, multiplication, and alignment. The journey toward financial elevation is not always predictable, but faith-driven risk is the engine that moves you from potential to reality. It separates those who talk about wealth from those who experience it, those who dream from those who live their God-given destiny. Every wealthy person who walks in divine blessing has, at some point, taken a step that seemed risky by human standards, but was aligned with God's plan. God rewards faith, boldness, and obedience. The willingness to act even in uncertainty signals readiness to receive, and the resources you need begin to flow. Faith-driven risks are not just about money. They are about demonstrating your trust in God's wisdom, His timing, and His ability to multiply what seems insufficient. God's guidance toward wealth often comes with this invitation: move when prompted, act when inspired, and trust without hesitation. Those who take these steps discover not only financial provision, but also spiritual depth, resilience, and a testimony of God's faithfulness. It is through faith-driven risk that God shows His power, opens new doors, and leads you to wealth that cannot be achieved by human effort alone. The principle is simple. Obedience activates blessing. Hesitation delays it. Courage unleashes it. Step boldly into the opportunities God places before you, even when they feel uncomfortable, uncertain, or challenging, because faith-driven risk is the hallmark of those who experience divine abundance. Every step taken in alignment with God's direction brings reward, and the financial breakthrough you seek is inseparable from your willingness to trust, act, and step forward when He calls. Relationships and networks are not mere coincidences. They are instruments of God's provision. The people He places in your life are often key players in the manifestation of your financial breakthrough. God's hand orchestrates connections, aligning you with mentors, partners, collaborators, and supporters who carry resources, wisdom, and opportunities that complement your journey toward wealth. These relationships are rarely accidental. Each encounter, each conversation, each handshake or introduction can be a divinely designed stepping stone toward abundance. Understanding this principle requires discernment, to recognize those whom God positions for your elevation and to invest in them wisely, not for selfish gain, but in alignment with your purpose. Wealth does not come in isolation. It flows through networks of trust, collaboration, and shared vision. God often leads you to people who have already walked the path, who can provide guidance, mentorship, and insight, or who are positioned to open doors that would otherwise remain closed. But these relationships require attentiveness, humility, and action. It is not enough to recognize a connection as divine. You must actively cultivate it, nurture it, and honor it with respect, integrity, and collaboration. Every influential figure, every supportive partner, every encouraging mentor is part of God's plan to multiply the blessings in your life. When you approach these relationships with faith and discernment, doors open naturally, opportunities multiply, and resources flow in alignment with your purpose. God uses these connections to bring timely advice, strategic insight, and critical introductions that accelerate your financial growth. But He also tests your heart through these relationships. Are you generous? Are you trustworthy? Are you willing to collaborate and contribute, not just receive? God measures readiness for wealth by how you treat the people around you, especially those who are positioned to influence your success. Misaligned relationships can lead to distraction, delay, or mismanagement of resources, while aligned relationships amplify impact. multiply provision, and build sustainable wealth. Recognizing and valuing God-placed relationships requires prayerful discernment. You must be sensitive to His guidance, seeing beyond surface appearances to the divine purpose behind each encounter. These networks are often catalysts for breakthroughs, enabling opportunities that human effort alone cannot create. God orchestrates timing, alignment, and synergy within these relationships to bring financial provision at the perfect moment. Understanding this principle transforms your approach to networking and partnerships. It is no longer about manipulation, personal gain, or superficial connections. It is about alignment with God's plan, shared vision, and strategic collaboration that honors His purpose. When you cultivate and steward these relationships correctly, God multiplies your wealth exponentially, not only in material terms, but in influence, reach, and impact. Every person in your life who aligns with your divine calling is part of a spiritual ecosystem designed to lift you to higher levels of provision. Ignoring these connections or undervaluing their importance risks missing the blessings God has orchestrated. Conversely, embracing them with humility, faith, and intentionality positions you for unprecedented breakthroughs. As you move forward in your financial journey, pay attention to the people God places in your path. Pray for wisdom to discern their purpose, act with integrity in all dealings, and be ready to receive and give in ways that honor God's vision. When you operate in alignment with these principles, relationships become more than social interactions. They become instruments of divine wealth, channels through which God's provision flows, doors through which His abundance enters your life, and catalysts for the fulfillment of your God-given destiny. Every financial blessing you receive carries with it a divine responsibility, a calling to use your resources for greater purpose. God does not provide wealth merely to satisfy desires or to accumulate possessions. He provides wealth to expand influence, to impact lives, and to advance His kingdom. When God leads you to money and wealth, He is simultaneously calling you to become a conduit of blessing, a channel through which provision flows not only for yourself but for others. The moment you understand this principle, your perspective shifts from selfish accumulation to purposeful multiplication. True wealth is never static. It grows when it is used wisely and multiplied when it is shared with intentionality. You are entrusted with resources to create opportunities, to uplift communities, to support missions, and to provide for those in need. Every dollar, every asset, every opportunity is part of a spiritual ecosystem designed by God to magnify impact. Misusing wealth, hoarding it, or treating it as an end in itself is a sign of spiritual immaturity. But embracing it as a tool for purpose aligns your heart with God's plan and activates further blessings. Using wealth for greater purpose requires vision and discernment. It is not enough to give randomly or act impulsively. Your actions must be guided by prayer, insight, and alignment with God's directives. This transforms money into a vehicle of influence, a testimony of faith, and a legacy that outlives you. Multiplication occurs when your wealth intersects with God's vision. Every strategic investment, every generous act, every initiative designed to bless others multiplies resources in ways that human effort cannot predict. Those who recognize this principle discover that the more they invest in God's purposes, the more provision flows back to them, often in exponential ways. Wealth then becomes a living instrument of faith, a demonstration of God's power, and a testimony to others that His blessings are real, tangible, and purposeful. It also transforms your character. Handling wealth responsibly with integrity, generosity, and wisdom molds you into a steward capable of managing even greater provision. Every blessing carries with it lessons of responsibility, patience, and accountability. God leads you not just to experience abundance, but to grow in the spiritual maturity required to sustain it. Abundance without purpose can be fleeting, but abundance aligned with divine intent produces lasting impact. It opens doors to further opportunities, strengthens relationships, and establishes a foundation for enduring influence. Wealth used wisely becomes a tool for transformation, transforming communities, advancing missions, and leaving a legacy of faith, generosity, and divine provision. The moment you see God's hand guiding you to money and wealth, embrace it with humility and vision. Recognize that it is more than personal gain. It is an opportunity to participate in God's plan on earth. Use it to multiply blessings, to invest in causes that honor Him, and to create pathways for others to experience provision. This is the ultimate purpose of wealth, to reflect God's heart, to demonstrate His faithfulness, and to magnify His glory through the lives of those He has called you to bless. When you adopt this mindset, every financial breakthrough becomes more than a personal milestone. It becomes a spiritual assignment. The wealth you receive is a resource for influence, a channel for impact, and a measure of how well you steward God's provision. The responsibility to multiply, to bless, and to act with purpose transforms ordinary resources into extraordinary instruments of divine work. Your financial journey, guided by God, is therefore inseparable from your spiritual journey. The blessings are meant to extend beyond you, to touch others, and to reflect God's love, wisdom, and abundance. Every dollar, every opportunity, and every strategic step is a call to action, a call to use what God has entrusted you with, not only to secure your future, but to expand His kingdom and leave a legacy that testifies to His faithfulness for generations to come.